And this is the other part of class where my eyeballs are still right over here by the clock. We're going to start right at 6 o'clock on the second, each class meeting. That way you'll know if you came in right at 6 o'clock in Zoom, you didn't miss anything. Maybe someone asked a question, but that's it. Class will always officially start right at 6 o'clock. That being said, if you do have questions and you came in early with questions, I'm happy to address them. And hey, it's official. Well, welcome to the fall 2025 semester, folks. This may not have been your first class you've taken this semester, but either ways, welcome back. And if you're a new student to ISU this year, welcome to ISU as well. Today's going to be kind of a lighter day. I don't have anything too heavy to do on the first day since we're all kind of usually a bit drained and more overwhelmed on the first day of school. So we're going to go over the syllabus briefly. It's not going to be a careful line by line reading. Some of you have already looked at. And hang on, my thing funny. Give me a moment. Sorry for that. I watched my L camera glitch out. Hopefully this technology doesn't break in the middle of the classroom. You never know what kind of problems could occur. I should check with the class though. Are you able to hear me, see me okay so far?
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. Thanks for the feedback on that. And there's lots of ways you can give feedback in this class while we're talking about that. There's reactions you can use on the Zoom controls and those kinds of things. You can also use chat if you'd like. Chat's a little bit trickier because I have to notice that a chat pops up, but that's also always going to be a viable method for you as well. And while we're talking about technology, the Zoom camera again just had a little glitch and had to reconnect its audio. Let me show you what the screen actually looks like on my end so you can get a feel for how this class is running. I just noticed my video cut out too. Okay, looks like I'm back. Okay, let me take a quick screenshot. And this is what my screen actually looks like. So as you can see, it's very, very busy. There's a lot going on. It's everything contained in this green rectangle right here that you see on the Word document. At the moment, since we're all introducing each other, I have the cameras on so that I can see me and those who choose to be on camera. But you should know you're not required to be on camera. This is completely up to your option. And in fact, I only have one monitor here with very, very limited screen real estate. So one of the things I do when class gets going is I do close out this camera right here. And that allows me to focus on the rest of the class. I have an annotation panel that's over to the left here, other Zoom controls. And this is where the chat comes in, right up here where the red dot is. So if you're sending a chat out, my job is to look at that very carefully and make sure I'm noticing it. This takes a little bit of practice on my end. So if your chat does go out and I didn't get to it, anyone in class can chime in at any point to just say, hey, Mike, you missed a chat. And that would be very helpful for all of us, me as well, since again, that's something that's pretty easy for me to miss. On the right-hand panel, this is a panel I keep up pretty much the entire class. I notice there's a scroll bar here. So even with this panel, I'm not able to see everybody exactly at once, but I'll do the best I can. So on this panel, you can use reactions and I'll see things like thumbs up or maybe a hand raised for a question, anything along those lines. And if you're in the habit of using reactions, that could be very helpful as well. So those are the ways to participate in class, either through using reactions. I'll be looking to the right panel here. Usually this is easier to notice for me. I'll be looking through the chats, and you can interject with voice at any time. So one of the things I do, I have to admit, full disclosure, is like I mentioned, I do close this out so I don't see everyone's faces. Really, it's my face that distracts me most of all. For some reason, I find that really easy to lose my train of thought when I'm looking at my own face. So let me close this out. Go back to the Canvas website. And now we're a little bit more ready to get started in earnest. Well, let me bring back our annotation today. So our goals are to briefly go over the syllabus, demonstrate our homework system called Newton. And if we have some time and we're not completely out of energy, we'll do some problems in section 2.3. I don't want to do too many, maybe 2 examples at most. mainly just to show you what class is going to look like, help us get started, and prepared when we come back on Thursday. We'll go through these notes in full. But that's our introduction so far. Any questions from the class at the moment before we get started looking into the syllabus? Okay, it's a pretty uncomfortably long silence. I'm going to try to remind myself to give a pause anywhere between 5 to 10 seconds when I call for questions. That way, it's going to give you a chance to think of the question in your mind, fully verbalize it, or if you're typing out something in chat, it gives you a chance to get that message completely out. And if you do use chat as your primary way to communicate, again, that's completely acceptable in this class. And if you're not the fastest typist, just get the chat in and hit enter as soon as you can. It's okay to interject either on voice or chat. And I'm happy to wind back the class and address those questions. So sometimes putting those questions out there is really helpful for everyone as well. I noticed that for me personally, I'm a little bit anxious after coming back from 4 months of not working over the summer break. And so I tend to talk fast and go a little bit faster than I really intend. So if anything seems vague or unclear, don't hesitate to ever interject. It'll never be considered rude. But until questions come up, let's start taking a look at the syllabus document. This was posted early, and I put in some revisions after the final version was posted in. But so far, nothing major as far as the revisions go. It's just this one thing in red. Oh, and I just noticed the chat. You betcha. Thanks for chiming in, Tracy. So I did put in a revision on this document, and anytime I have to revise anything, whether it's a syllabus, not the textbook, that's not going to be revised by me, but maybe a notes, something down here, I'll always let you know by putting revised next to it. On the document itself, I usually put revised in red as well. And anything I change, I put in red. And this is the one change on the syllabus document. I'm also available in room 215. It's a weird thing to say for an online class like this one. Usually office hours are going to be from 4:15 to 5:15, available through Zoom. And that's where I would imagine most students are going to come in through. But someone in another one of my classes had a really excellent question. If they are on the Idaho Falls campus, you're welcome to swing by as well. There's no harm. Right now, I'm just in an empty classroom, 215 on Idaho Falls. Sorry for those in Pocatello, that's a harder option. But you're welcome to come in for office hours, whether it's Zoom or in person in the classroom. My office hours run 4:15 to 5:15, and these are going to be Monday through Thursday. They're considered walk-in office hours or log-in office hours since it's Zoom for most students. That means you don't have to alert me by email or any other way that you're coming in. You can just completely drop in and I'll start working with you on whatever questions you might have. It's good to take a pause right here. That's probably one of the more important things to talk about, the office hours. And what goes along quite well with office hours is the contact information as well from up here. I post my phone number as a courtesy. This could possibly be useful for emergencies, things like that. But the primary way that I usually communicate with students is through this email address right here. I mention this to all my classes. This email address is really dangerous, right where the red dot is. Watch out for that E. It's easy to accidentally send an email to Mike Jacobson with an O when it should have went to Jacobson with an E. You can email me essentially anything whatsoever. It could be a question about the class, maybe a question about the exam. Maybe you are coming in through office hours and you just want to alert me what you want to talk about. That's totally fine too. I just want to emphasize it's fully optional. You could possibly be working on homework or working on a quiz. If you get stuck at any point when you're working, don't hesitate to just directly email me about it. One great way that you could email me is, let's imagine that this is your homework you're working on. This is just a syllabus. If this was your homework that you're working on, maybe it's your notebook and you're doing the Newton homework system. We'll demonstrate that homework system later in class today. And if you're writing down your homework and you get stuck on it, maybe the answer's not taking, you can just completely take a cell phone picture of your homework, take that picture and directly send it to this ISU email address. I'll be very happy to work with you in that kind of way as well. So however you'd like to work with me and connect on that email address, I'll be very happy to work with you, as well as just the drop-in office hours here. Think of my email address as just alternative office hours. Sure, it's not as immediate as Zoom. I have to write back to you, so sometimes the turnaround is a little bit slower. But if you have, say, even 4 or 5 questions and you want to get them off your chest, send them all to me at any time of the day, and I'll always get to you as fast as possible. I'm very, very responsive on email, especially when I'm in my home office. Whenever I see an email notification, something just happens in my head, and I feel like that's the thing I have to address right away, that email. Other things I slightly mentioned is it doesn't matter when you have that email question. If you're working really late at night, if you're working at, say, 5 a.m. for some reason, really early in the morning, just send that email the moment it pops into your head, whatever the question is. That's the best time to write it. And I'll email you back at my most soonest availability. Usually my availability for being on email on Tuesday and Thursday is around 7 a.m. to maybe around 1 o'clock. On Monday and Wednesday, I'm checking my email and responding back between about 7 a.m. and I think about 3 p.m. Friday, my email is a lot more wide open, probably around 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. as well, maybe as late as 5 p.m. I'm not as available on the weekends, but I do check just in case any kind of emergency might happen. It's a lot of talking already so far. Any questions about getting a hold of me through either the email, phone, or office hours, or any other questions at the moment? Oh, we got the one in the chat. Great, glad to hear that. Thank you, Gavin. Okay, let's keep on going through the document. It's kind of uncomfortable silence, I have to admit to you, waiting 5 to 10 seconds, but there's latency. The Zoom format causes extra barriers to instant communication. So it's something I'll try to remember to do and get used to. We'll all get used to it together. So we're not going to go through every element on this website. For example, you already know where the class meetings are. You've all made it in. You probably are aware of the course webpage, Canvas. But let's take a look at it for just a moment. When you go to log into Canvas, a lot of you are probably going to be on this page right here, the dashboard showing all of your classes. And I'm learning the system myself too for the very first time. I've just learned that it's default with a cover color overlay. It makes our class look a little bit weird. That seems like a weird thumbnail to pick. You might want to experiment with that. There's this 3 dots on the upper right. Click on color overlay, and this might look worse depending on how your other classes are configured on the thumbnails, but it makes this one look a little bit more normal. So that's just an option you can tune to your convenience, or preference rather. If you have other issues that might be coming up with the course Canvas page, a lot of us are learning this. And if this is your first semester at ISU, you're possibly learning it for the very first time as well. Don't hesitate to email me or just jump into office hours at any time. I'll be happy to help out. Well, let's keep on going through this syllabus. This course does have a calculator policy. What we require for our homework is a scientific calculator, and these are the 2 prototypical examples. I said this is required for homework, but what it's mostly required for is exams. And if we're using these calculators on exams, you might as well use it on your homework so that you're becoming more and more familiar with the same tool that you'll actually bring to an exam setting. So let's go to the Canvas page once more. I have something called calculators allowed on exams. Let's open that link. And I was a little strong on the verbiage right here. I said these are the only 2. Well, as long as you have a calculator like this, then that would be sufficient. What we're trying to exclude is certain scientific calculators that can do more algebra that's part of the actual course objectives. So we're looking something along these lines. I would say this is my top recommendation. It's cheap, and you can put in a lot of math in one line, making it user-friendly as well. You might be familiar with this one, probably from science classes and so on. If you're really good in this calculator, it is slightly more challenging to use. You're basically doing order of operations in reverse when you're doing this kind of calculator. If this is your more comfortable calculator to work with, it's a fine one as well. And if you're just not sure, if you have a calculator that you've been using for quite a while, go back to the syllabus. These are the calculators that are going to be excluded, so you might want to check against this list. Certain Casio calculators, for example, certain TI, Texas Instrument calculators, they just do too much so that it's doing the course objectives, and you might really lose out on points on exams because showing step-by-step work is part of the credit on exam, whereas a calculator might crunch through something you're meant to show steps on. So if you're not sure if your calculator is one that could be used in this class, you could, again, take a picture of it and just email me, or just email me the model number, something like that, and I'll be very happy to do that research for you and let you know as soon as possible. So that's our calculator policy. Just about any calculator policy has this statement that cell phones cannot be used as a calculator, but I think we're all kind of expecting that these days. Aside from the calculator policy, I have some information I want to skip through, the prerequisites, the objectives, and the learning objectives. I'll leave this information here to your reading. More important things I want to talk about are going to be how the homework, quizzes, and examinations work in this class. So any questions at the moment before we delve through this section? Okay, well, let's take a look. The major thing I want to talk about in homework is the Newton, full name I suppose is Newton Alta. I'll usually just say Newton homework system that we're going to be using in this class. I want to come back to that, so we'll go through the quizzes and exams in more detail, and then we'll talk more about the Newton Alta system, mainly so that we can actually demonstrate it as well to show how it looks. But maybe even before all that, let's go back to the Canvas webpage. For our class, one thing that's really nice about it is the textbook is completely free. Here it is, Intermediate Algebra. This is the direct link to a PDF that you could download right away. If you'd like to see it on this online version, back to the syllabus, sorry for jumping around so much. The online version of our textbook can be accessed through this URL right here under course text. So if just the online version works better on your tablet or laptop or desktop, that's a good option. I feel like most people do pretty well with just the PDF, so that's why I have it linked down right here. It's not very large either as a download. So our textbook is free, which is quite nice. And this course through the math department also requires the homework to go through the Newton Alta system. So pretty much I would say that this is really good first assignment for us all right here. Some people have already gone through this link. What this does is it gets you registered for using Newton Alta. Some people have already done that and started looking into the homework questions. So after class today, I'd say take a look into this link. Just write that in. This will get you registered in Newton Alta, and then you can use this same link to just log back in and start working on the homework. We were told to put in the ISU book bundle link on our Canvas course page as well, but I'm not really sure why. This thing seems broken. I don't know if it's even necessary at all, but I was told to do it, so here it is. Let me show you what it looks like when I click on it. It's really slow. That's a sign that something's not working. It says you have no materials associated with this course, but really that's okay. The Newton system is not designed to integrate right into the Canvas course page. So you'd be typically just clicking on this to log back in. You click on it a first time to register with the class, and then click it on again just to log back in and do homework. I'll just show what this looks like in a lot more detail when we come back to class on Thursday. But I feel like showing too much detail here is going to be kind of hard to really get a good sense of until you're all really registered. So that's why let's consider this as an assignment to do after class, and then we'll start fresh with questions about how this works. We should pause right here though. Anyone have any questions about this link at the moment before we move on? Okay, so let me clear that off for the moment. So our textbook is going to be free. Homework goes through the Newton Alta system. And I posted some information about the homework over here. The best way to do this homework is to really work it out on paper by hand. Sometimes people see these problems and they just write down really fast scratch work and just upload the answer. But the way you want to imagine you're doing these problems is that you're doing this on an actual exam setting. The reason for this is the purpose of this is to get you set up for doing your exams, and showing your step-by-step solutions is practice for what you'll have to be showing on a real exam as well. So if you're always showing your step-by-step solutions, and we will ourselves do so when we go to solve these problems to show what's expected on exams, what's expected on quizzes, the homework is going to prepare you majorly for being ready on the exams. So that's why I have this on exams. Step-by-step solutions are required for credit. And so using a notebook, actually doing your problems on paper and writing everything out is going to help you quite a lot. The problems themselves are not really even worth a lot, 15% of the course. The quizzes, which are shorter than the homework assignments, are 15% as well. Really, the bulk of the course is 70%, 40 of it from exams 1, 2, 3. So your average of those exams is 40%. And the math department required a 30% on the final exam as well. So doing your homework as if they're real exam questions, kind of like an exam 1 dress rehearsal on your first homework sets, prepares you really well on getting through exam 1 here. And also, I mentioned we're going to have quizzes as well. I realize that there's a good amount of problems on the homework, so my quizzes are very short. Sometimes it's one problem. It could be 1 to 3 if there's just really small parts, things like that, faster problems. My quizzes fit on just 1 page. And even though I call them quizzes, they're take-home quizzes. They're not something I'm going to just jump at you with and you have to solve in class live. The purpose of my quizzes is that there's sometimes a disconnect between doing online homework. This is the homework in the Newton Alta system that we'll demonstrate. And then doing homework online over here and then suddenly doing it in an exam setting, it feels different because these exams are now on paper. The quizzes I write are an attempt to bridge the gap. My quizzes are going to be given as a PDF document that you can solve on paper or print out and solve on that document if you so choose. We'll talk more about that when we post our first quiz. And the quizzes problems are going to be highly similar to real exam questions that are over here. So here's the kind of organization of the course. When you come back, say on, let me close this for the moment. When we come back on Thursday's class, what you'll want to do is as much reading as you can. I know that this is a non-traditional class being a night one. Some people might get off work and then come right into class. But any kind of skimming you can do in the textbook, reading section 2.3, I'll show the exact page numbers as well, is going to help you out a lot so that when we go to this section, you won't be seeing that information for the very first time. So the progress is read the section, come to class, and we'll be doing highly similar problems on this document here. We'll upload solutions and all that. Then, after we've done those sections here, you'll go back up to Newton Alta, do the homework set for that section. And at the very end of the week, I'm only going to post 1 quiz per week because I don't want quizzes to overcompete for your time on the homework up here. But at the end of the week, I'll post a quiz weekly. We'll probably have about 12 to 14 quizzes altogether. And that quiz is going to be kind of a summary of everything we did in the week. Sometimes I can't ask everything because I don't want the quiz to get too long, but it's going to be like the main question that something you should be prepared on, oops, wrong thing, for the exam. So excelling at homework, coming to class, watching the lectures is going to help you get prepared on the quizzes, which is designed to show you what a real exam questions are going to look like and help you get through the exams. So that's kind of the scaffolding we have through getting through this big chunk of the course. And I've taught this class a lot, and I found that students who keep caught up on your homework routinely get their quizzes done and work really hard on the quizzes, asking questions when necessary, tend to do really well in the exams as well. As far as the exams go, everything is pretty much on the Canvas page. I have the exam dates posted. Our first exam is going to be on a Tuesday. I like to do it at the start of the week so that you'll have the weekend to review questions and things like that. And I'll be posting review material. Let me actually move the order of this stuff here. As we get closer to this week, definitely before the weekend, getting into exam one, I'll post a lot of review problems and extra material so that you'll know just what is on exam one and what further problems could you take a look at to help prepare. But really, the best preparation for exam one is everything you do in the middle, doing the textbook reading, doing the homework and quizzes diligently is great preparation. You're working in chunks, not a whole bunch all at once, which is just easier on the brain. That was a lot of talking about quizzes and homework and exams so far. I do have some extra credit in this course, but this is nothing too major. They specifically told me to write in this statement, extra credit will not be given. So it's nothing too major. As far as the quizzes go, I do drop the lowest two quizzes at the very end of the semester. And I might have an extra credit opportunity where that could jump up to 3 quizzes that are dropped in total. Just to reiterate on quizzes, we'll mention a lot of this material again when we release our first quiz. But the quizzes are just like an add-on to the homework. You can work together on quizzes. You can ask me questions on quizzes as well. This is just your practice problem to help you get ready for the upcoming exams 1 through 3 on every single quiz posted. So keep in mind, homework is worth a lot, but so are quizzes. This is where you get a lot of return, but also math is just a system of practice when it comes to mastery. So being very diligent on getting through the homework is a huge help on preparing you for the exams. This is a lot of talking, 27 minutes just about so far. Any questions or comments at the moment? Thanks for asking about that, Gavin. ISU math department has a specific policy for even this class, which is confusing because this is called a fully online class, but they still require the exams to be in a testing center. And that's one of the announcements that I was sending out earlier this morning. I would say that's a tough question to answer, but thank you for asking about that. Oh, there's a couple questions. Let me go in order. So to stick with finalizing Gavin's question there, the exams are required to be in person at a testing center. And depending on where you're located at, some of you might be in the Idaho Falls area, in which case I'm going to be working with you directly and send you over to the Idaho Falls Testing Center. Others might be in the Pocatello area. I see that's where you're at as well, Gavin. And so if you are in the Pocatello area, that's going to work out just fine as well. I'll be sending your exam. I believe it's called the Albion Center now for the Pocatello Testing Center. If you are somewhere else in Idaho, I have some students near Boise State University, some students near University of Idaho around Moscow area, some students in central Idaho. This class can still work for you as well. I'm very fluent in navigating the various testing centers across Idaho. And in fact, I've had students who have been in California. I have a current student in Rhode Island, some students in Arizona. I have students all over the place. The mandatory in-person requirement for testing in a testing center is sometimes kind of scary, but I'm getting better and better every year at researching the right testing center and getting students through the course. So that answers Gavin's question, I hope. Oh, that I believe it's the Albion Testing Center. I'll be giving you those materials once I work with you to show you exactly how to test with the Pocatello Testing Center. And in fact, one thing I'm going to be doing on Friday is I'm going to go through my class roster and individually send you a message through Canvas to just ask where is your preferred testing center, and I'll be marking that down on the file. And as we get closer to exam, maybe 2 weeks before the exam, I'll send extra information on how everything works with your specific testing center, take any questions you might have so that all these kind of questions get definitely answered. But let me put this in a chat because that might be a little bit easier to see. I might misspell this, but it's the Albion Testing Center is in Pocatello. Okay, going down the line in chat, thank you for saying these questions, by the way. This is always a fine way to participate. Many ask, what time are the exams? And that's one of the things that's weird about a class like this one. Because you all have to work with various testing centers, you're subject to their schedule's availability. And also, this is a night class. A lot of testing centers actually might be closed right now, even. So, what that means is the time for the exam is going to be up to you to schedule with the testing center. It'll be more firm on the actual date. The day of the exam will be on Tuesday, and any time of the day on Tuesday is going to work out just fine. Let me know if I didn't fully answer your question, Manny. And going down the line, Brian has asked a pretty tough question to answer. Is attending the Zoom meetings mandatory, or can we just keep up on the recorded lectures? Well, if you looked at the syllabus really carefully, you may have noticed I don't actually have an attendance policy. Part of that reason is it's a non-traditional class, being a night class, an online class as well. And I realize that a lot of us have jobs, kids, families, stuff like that, and life can get in the way of a lot of stuff. So it's for that reason I don't take attendance, and I cannot make Zoom attendance mandatory. In fact, if you ever have a rough day and you just wanted to be in class but you couldn't make it, maybe your internet went out, all sorts of weird things can happen. Maybe the computer's on the fritz. All classes are going to be recorded, as this one is, which is helpful. We've talked about a lot of information. And under this link right here, recorded lectures, it will take you to a Zoom playlist where you can see what was missed. So I don't have to launch onto Clay's question as well. I don't have a number of classes you can miss. I just encourage you attend as many as possible. So that's the longer answer to Brian's question. Sometimes attending a class online is actually pretty hard. You're probably at home. You might be in a kind of a quiet place at home, but still filled with distractions. For me, I'm in an empty classroom with sound dampening material across all the walls in the room. It's easy for me to focus. But you might have noticed it's easy for you to drift off just in this one class meeting itself, let alone when we're doing actual algebra, which is not always the most exciting content to be doing. So already being in a Zoom meeting, it's a pretty tough environment. That's something you need to be prepared of for being in this class. And you know what's even harder is participating by just watching the recorded lecture. So to give a full and honest answer to both Ryan and Clay, I don't have a limit on the number of classes you can miss. Attendance isn't part of your grade, and I'm not going to penalize people if they miss a whole lot of classes. Just know that there's a higher burden on you for each class you meet to get caught up, to internalize that material. Hopefully that answers both of those questions. Any other questions at the moment? Nadij asks, after we take a quiz or exam, are you going to discuss about it on our next class meeting? You know, that kind of depends. I don't always give a full wrap up after an exam or a quiz. It's really up to the student. So after a quiz or exam happens, and just about any class period, I do take questions. So it's really your opportunity to ask questions about the exam or a quiz that we might have had, and I'll be happy to take them. But we don't actually have a block of time that we spend post discussions on an exam in particular. So it's really up to the student, the student, to ask the questions on those. In fact, one of the things that's kind of challenging about this class, I have to admit to you, is that it's a so-called coordinated class. What that means is there's one person in the math department who's designed this class. That same person has selected all of the homework problems and the Newton homework system right here. That same person is going to write the final exam, but I write exams 1 through 3, which is helpful. I try to write my exams in the same style as the course coordinator. And the course coordinator has also determined this day-by-day syllabus. And so we have to stick to this. If we get a little bit behind on any one of these sections, we do have to move a little bit faster to get caught up, because every one of these sections are going to fit on the final exam. And my goal is to go at a speed where we still have a full day to review before the final exam. I think it's cruel not to be able to do that and have to be doing a very last section on Thursday before finals week. So again, that's one thing that's kind of tough about our section. We don't have a lot of time to review before exams 1, 2, or 3. So what I'm going to be doing is posting, like I mentioned, ahead of exam 1. I'll be on the Canvas webpage uploading a lot of extra study information. Also, I know I realized I did say that I don't take very many questions on by email over the weekend. But you know what? Tuesday, September 23 is exceptional. I realize an exam is coming up, and I do make myself actually available on email on Saturday and Sunday leading to this exam. I'm not on email the entire days on both those times, but that gives you an opportunity to work on or to work with me on your studying. Brian Lee asks, is there a penalty for late work? That's another thing that's kind of unfortunate about this course is I'm not a huge fan of penalties on late work. The math department, in their setup of the Newton-Alton homework system, did set up a late policy for homework. Assignments not complete on time do have a 30% grade penalty, which is unfortunate, but that just encourages us to really keep up with the material. I think that's the reason that they went for that particular course policy. And it's one of the reasons that I decided to not make homework such a big deal in this class. It's at 15%. And I do not have a late policy on quizzes. So it's the homeworks that you really have to be watching on a regular day by day, week by week basis. Quizzes, you should stay caught up as well, but if things get out of hand, get caught up in your homework first. I can't take a quiz late. I don't have a late policy on quizzes, just on the Newton Alta homework system. Julia asks, will there be a practice exam available in Newton before the exam is due? You know, that's a good question. I haven't put in practice exams in Newton. I've typically put them in here, right on the Canvas webpage. But if that's something that people would be interested in, let me make a note of that because it's honestly not a bad idea at all. So let me make this just another way to study. I'm going to need a note for myself. I have to write down these notes because sometimes I've noticed in the past, I'll say I'm going to do something, but if I don't write it down, this is never going to come back to my attention again. So this will be my reminder. On exams 1, 2, and 3, post sample exam in Newton as well. I'm not going to worry too much about the misspelling there. So to answer your question, yeah, I think that's a good idea, Julia. I didn't initially plan on doing this, but it's not too hard to do in the system. And more ways to study is always a good thing. So I'm going to make sure practice exams are also available there. There is, in fact, practice final exams in Newton as well. So that part is already covered on the final exam. And when we're way, way down here, this is December 15th, final exam week. There will be extra final exams that I post here. And like I mentioned, there are some that are also available in the Newton system. Other questions or comments so far? Sorry for the random scrolling there. Okay, well, these are the major things that I want to talk about in the syllabus. We'll talk a little bit more about each of these exams, how they're going to work, things like that. They're all going to be 75-minute exams. The final exam will be a 2-hour comprehensive final exam. I know it's rough, but we get through it. Aside from that, please check the day-by-day syllabus. We'll try to stick to this as closely as possible so that we never have like a crunch time around an exam or towards the end of the course, since an uneven, go really fast as possible to catch up usually makes learning a lot harder. So we'll try to do our best to stick to the schedule. But already I'm sensing we might be behind because I'm not going to try to rush through section 2.3 today. I think that'd be kind of hard to get through. So we'll adjust when it's necessary and try to stick to the schedule as best as possible. Other things that are on the syllabus under university resources, all this stuff that has been italicized is something written not by me, by different people at Idaho State University. And they're all really important statements. If you're taking multiple other classes, you've probably seen very similar statements. You should be aware of the accessibility statement. This applies to everybody. Academic integrity is a generic statement that you should be aware of. This is more just an encouragement statement on being successful in your class. Sometimes this could be something very critical for students. Know that just being an ISU student does mean you have certain services available to you, essentially already paid for. This statement here, again, I'm going to leave you to read these in full, but I'm just pointing you, giving you extra comments about what they're all about. This one's majorly important, and this applies to every single class you take at ISU. Emails could be different if you're, say, dealing with an English class. But just know, as an ISU student, if you feel like something is just not quite going right in your class, sometimes students are a very good sense of what's fair and unfair. There are always student rights and ways to address it. In the math department, we have our department chair you might contact, as well as the dean of the College of Science and Engineering. This is his first semester on the job, so congratulations to him. Usually they recommend that you contact your instructor first, go to the department chair if you didn't get a good answer, escalate it to, say, the dean of the college if you don't get a good answer there. And for the more information, there's even more things you can do to escalate. If you know in your heart something happened that's just not quite right in your class, you can escalate this to the dean of the students, to the provost, and so on. And it's just really important to know about your rights as a student, because weird things can happen in a class, and you don't always have to take it if you know that that's something that should not have happened. Next is a majorly important federal law, the Title IX law. This is one that doesn't change much because, again, it's a federal law on the books, but it's something that you should be aware of, you should understand. And if you feel like something has been violated here, there are avenues to pursue and make it right as well on the reading here. That's a lot of technical reading, so you might not do this on your first week of class, but this is something to come back to. At least read this once. These kind of statements stay pretty similar, so if this is not your first ISU class, you might want to skim through it just to see what information might be slightly changed. And that's it, folks. We took 42 minutes, but I think it's time well spent. There was a lot of great questions being asked. That's our syllabus. If I have to make any revision, I'll let you know right away. I might call it revision 2 or something along those lines. So this is pretty much the experience of this class. Every time you log in to Zoom, I'm going to have it scroll down to about where we're at, usually in the current week. And there's a lot of other materials here. Student resources have been posted by the Intermediate Algebra Course Coordinator. There's a lot of extraneous links like doing your homework the right way. These are just study materials, so they're optional to look at, to watch through. And this is the real meat of the course. Section 2.3 means we're working out to section 2.3 of the class textbook. Just a reminder, since we've thrown out lots of information all at once, this is the class textbook, Intermediate Algebra. When you download that, here's what it looks like. Our book is loading, there we go. So the first section, go to chapter 2. If it says, let me scroll down again. On August, it says we're doing section 2.3. Then in your textbook, go to, pop out the index, chapter 2. Let's pop out the arrow, section 2.3. And this is it. This is our textbook. It's pretty dry stuff, I have to be completely honest with you. So if you're doing a bit of skimming right before class, you know what, that's better than nothing. But sometimes you can save time by spending extra time here. Extra time here is going to get you familiar with the course content. That way, when you come to class and we're doing the same problems in section 2.3, you haven't seen this material for the very first time, which is harder on our brain to absorb and really adapt. The way you read this textbook is also very important. Example 2.28 says, solve the formula for H. And the best way to read this textbook is extremely actively, actually trying to read it line by line is going to put you to sleep. Take out a piece of paper, grab a pen or pencil, copy the problem down, and just start solving it to the best of your ability. If you get stuck, start looking at the solutions, and it'll help you to scroll to just to the part where you got stuck at, and then go to continue to solve it completely yourself. This alone is a pretty good study resource for exams, and this is what the reading looks like. If you scroll completely through this, it's like a traditional textbook. At the very end, we're almost there. Some of these sections are kind of long. It has some standard exercises that you would expect, kind of crazy with the problem numbers, but we're not doing exercises directly out of this book. The homework system here on Newton Alta just has a smaller selection, well, much smaller selection of homework problems to practice on the system there. So again, this will be the experience. This PDF file here, I call up as a Word document since it's just easier to edit. And before you come to class, this is part of the announcement, but it doesn't hurt to reiterate. You might want to print this out or maybe download it onto your computer, depending on how you're working. More tactile people might prefer it printed out. And these are essentially big worksheets with lots of blank space. We fill this out in the class. And once we have this all filled out, lots of white space, I upload the solutions right here so that it's just another way to show what we did in class. Sometimes going to the YouTube video, it's kind of tedious to go right to where you're looking for. This will contain, right where the red dot is, all of our solved problems that we did in class ourselves. If you ever want to go back to one of these sections, sometimes it's kind of overwhelming seeing all the solutions that we already put in, but I'm also going to have a set of blank lecture notes right here in this module. So if you want to print out something fresh, you could print that out or download it fresh and just start working it yourself again. That alone is a great resource for studying for an upcoming exam. So after we do these sections and completely solve this, that's when you would come back, go into the Newton Alta system, start working on the problems in that section there. Again, our bigger homework for today is to click on that link and get registered. Let me know if you run into any kind of snags or issues. Any kind of pictures or screenshots you can send me by email would be helpful as well to help out. And when we come back on Thursday's class, that's when we're going to log into this and start demonstrating it as a class. That way I'm not showing you what this looks like before you're even registered. I think it's harder to really retain that information in that kind of way. Well, that's my major overview that I want to give about how the course Canvas page will work and major items in the syllabus. Let me see if I can go back far enough. So that was our goals for the day. Go over the syllabus. Well, we didn't quite do this one. I think I had a different change of heart. We'll demonstrate this more fully on Thursday when it's more meaningful. Next, what we're going to do is do maybe one or two examples in the actual 2.3 section lecture notes here. But again, it's still kind of the introductory to the course. The reason I don't want to go too far today is I just want to show you how the class is going to proceed so you get a good idea when you come back next Thursday. And also not to overwhelm people with information overload. We've been talking for nearly 50 minutes already. So before we start these problems in section 2.3, any questions whatsoever so far? Okay, well, let's do a couple problems. Our class goes into 7:15, so it looks like we might be ending class about 20 minutes early today. But, that's not too bad of an idea for the first day back. So here's the section 2.3 notes. If you download a PDF file, it's exactly the same. I also make the Word file available for folks who don't mind working in Microsoft Word. Just know that you probably do need a full version of Microsoft Word because I use these little fields right here, the equation editor block. So if this isn't formatting correctly for you, if it looks broken or garbled, then you probably need to be using the PDF version right here. So let's give this a try. This is our first example for the day for the entire course, so it's kind of exciting. This course has some prerequisites assumed, so we're not jumping right into equation solving. We're doing a slightly harder task of solving a formula for a specific variable. That's kind of a rough first problem, so we'll give it a try right away on this one. But really, sometimes when you're solving a harder problem like this one, you might be a little bit rusty on algebra. I get it, I took 4 months off over the summer. The best way to tackle a slightly harder problem like this one is to work by analogy. Work by the things you know and leverage it against the bigger problem. So we're going to do exactly that. Let's break this problem in two and do a preliminary example. So solving a formula is hard, and they want us to solve for the variable n. So that's the n variable right here. So let's make something similar, but just a little bit more easier to digest. Instead of a variable a, let's just put in a direct number 5. You wouldn't want to do this on every problem you solve, but just to get started to crack open this one, we're putting in 5 for a. M is not what we're going to solve for, so let's write in equals, maybe a 3 for m, plus the variable we're solving for is n, and we're used to solving for x based off our training in prior algebra classes. So I'll write that in as an x as well. Divide by 2. So on the right-hand side, this is our analogy. If we can solve this equation, it's massive practice for solving this formula on the left, the harder goal. And solving an equation like this one, you might feel a little bit rusty on this. That's okay as well. I realize this is the first day, so let's discuss this really carefully. The very first thing you want to do here is clear the denominator. You might not do this on your notebook or your digital tablet, however you're following along, but what I usually do is I rewrite the equation because sometimes algebra gets a little bit messy when you go through the steps. And it's nice to know what did the original equation look like before we even start to solve it. Sometimes the more you can give some visual clarity to what's going on in the problem, the easier. It'll be easier to look back on your old work if you get into this kind of habit, but it's not strictly required whatsoever. So mostly just for making it look cleaner on the notes, especially if you came back to look at these particular notes. So clearing the denominator means we're multiplying by 2 here. That denominator is going to multiply on the right-hand side, which forces us to simultaneously multiply on the left-hand side. To indicate multiplication, I'm often going to use a solid dot. And the reason this clears the denominator is, even though there is an addition of elements in the numerator here, we can cancel across a denominator into a numerator, provided there's a multiplication right there, as there is right by that red dot. So the major difficulty of the problem is just gone the moment you multiply both sides by 2. Left-hand side simplifies to 10 equals 3 plus x. Then we're well on our way. We've taken a tricky equation to start because it had fraction in it. Now we just have an ordinary equation. To solve this, we just mean we want to get x isolated, so we subtract 3 from both sides. I'll format it in this way, minus 3 on both sides. A little tally bar says we're going to go column-wise through the tally here, 10 minus 3 for a 7. Copy in the equals. The 3's cancel, and 0 plus x is just x. So we just write in x. Any questions at all, folks, running through the solution on the right? Okay. Depending on your background, some people might feel like, well, you knew this really well, so you might be slightly bored. Other people might feel like it's been a while and you're a little bit rusty. A lot of people come into Math 1108 intermediate algebra with pretty different backgrounds. So wherever you're at, Practice is going to help a lot. And if you feel like this was pretty hard, don't fret. You can send me an email about it, and I can send you a little bit more extra study materials or different places in the textbook that you can look at to review before class on Thursday, maybe over the weekend. So now that we did this on the right-hand side, we're going to duplicate our work on the left. Again, I'm going to recopy the equation. It's already here originally, but I don't want to do a step right where the problem is. I'll go A equals M plus N divide by 2. So we're working by analogy, which means we're going to take the exact same step. Clear the denominator to start. So go times 2 on the right, times 2 on the left. I still put a dot here just to be, I guess, hyper-specific. I'm multiplying. But if you wrote it out this way, that's totally fine as well. 2a literally just is the shorthand for 2 times a. Let's leave it like this just to emphasize that's an okay way to write it as well. But like we said, the simplified version of 2 times a is just 2a written that way. On the right-hand side, same exact process happens. It doesn't matter if the numerator is more extract with 2 variables. The 2 will cancel out, and we'll just have m plus n. Then finally, we're on this line right here. The number 3 is playing the role of m. We will have the original formula solved for n the moment n itself is completely isolated on one side or the other of the equation. That just means m has to go. We'll do the analogous thing like we did here on the right and go subtract m, but this is where it gets a little bit harder. On the right, I had like terms, just ordinary integers. The number 10 and the number -3 are like terms. We can subtract them, add them together, no problem, and get a result. But over here, we have a totally different situation. These are unlike terms because they involve different variables. So because this is unlike terms, they must be written in this specific way. 2a minus m. Well, I said that in kind of a restrictive way. If you wrote -m plus 2a, that qualifies just as well. And the homework system knows to accept equivalent forms of algebra. I would have written it just this way, going top to bottom, 2a minus m equals n. At that stage, we've got it, folks. That's the solution for the major problem, part A of example 1. There's a lot of things some people do at the very end of a problem like this, probably more out of muscle memory than anything. A lot of people like to box their answers. This is something you might do on a quiz or an exam, but I want to emphasize it's not strictly necessary. It's really up to your stylistic choice of writing math. It's up to your preference. The goal in writing your mathematics is that it showed all the middle steps. This is going to be required for credit on exams. And just go into a linear process. Show me what happens step by step by step. I'll read all of it. If you end on the solution, that's a completely great way to convey your result. There's not much more you have to say here. So I myself personally, I probably won't box out every single answer unless I feel like my work kind of was a little bit vague where the answer actually landed on. In that case, I would end with a box on the answer. I'll do it on this one just to emphasize because I have something on the right, the analogy, and now I'm emphasizing that's my answer to the original question on the left. We did it, folks. That's our first example for the entire semester, first of many. We will solve hundreds of different algebra problems, not all equations, but lots of things related to equations as well. Any questions or comments at the moment, folks, getting through this first part A? Okay, like I mentioned, I don't want to get too far into these notes just yet, since all of us are getting started, getting used to the course. So we'll come back on Thursday talking about the Newton Alta homework system, taking any questions that you might have had about getting registered. And then after looking into that system, we'll come back to these notes and run through it in full. So let's leave it off for now. I just want to point out, the moment we end class for the day, what I'll do is save this. I convert it this way to a PDF file. There it goes. Then I take this PDF file and I overwrite it right here where it says section 2.3, the 2.3 PDF here. I'll overwrite that file right there. So when you come back on class on Thursday, you can open this and know just exactly where we're at in the course at any given time. But this is where we'll end class for the day. Major thing to work on, oh, and I think I kind of messed that up. Major thing to work on is back over here. Just getting familiar with the Knewton Alta login. If you come back on Thursday's class, ready to go with Knewton Alta, I would say you're fully caught up for the course. If you run into any snags whatsoever, don't hesitate to reach out. You can message me directly in the Canvas system, reach out to my ISU email address. Any of those will be fine ways to communicate. Or just pop in office hours. Like I mentioned, let me see if my syllabus is still up. It's not. But like I mentioned, if any kind of issues occur, you'd rather just discuss it face to face in office hours, well, face to face across Zoom, that is. Or if you make it to the classroom, I guess that is face to face. I'll be available in Zoom and in this classroom 4:15 to 5:15 every single Monday through Thursday. If something happens and I have to cancel those office hours, I'll always give you an early advance notice, but that's usually pretty rare for me in a semester. Well, this is where we're going to wrap it up. Any last questions or comments at all, folks, before we call it a night? Okay, well, have a great evening, everyone. I'll see you back at 6 o'clock on Thursday. Thanks for all the great questions as well. That's very helpful for everyone in the class. Yes, absolutely. I'll try to make sure that they, oh, sorry, I was just reading a question again. Yep, you bet.